Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. It's computer lecture of class ninth, and we are discussing our chapter number 4, that is storage devices. And we have discussed that the storage devices are used to store data and programs, while some storage devices can store data permanently while others can store data temporarily, and it has two types. The storage devices are classified into two types, main memory or secondary memory. And we have discussed yesterday that main memory is the most important part of computer, and it is used to store data and instructions that are currently in use, and that is directly accessible to the CPU, that is directly linked by the CPU. The program is loaded in computer memory before its execution. Data and results of calculations are stored in main memory, and computer cannot work without having main memory. And there are two types of main memory for storing data, uh, RAM and ROM. Next, our question number 3. What is RAM? Describe different types of RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. Random Access Memory is the type of main memory that store data temporarily, and it is the primary storage device. It is used to store data and instructions temporarily. It takes the same amount of time to access any location in RAM. RAM is very important type of main memory that store data and instructions temporarily, but that is very important for the memory storage. And CPU can perform two types of operations on RAM, read operation and write operation, because main memory is directly accessible to the CPU. So what CPU can perform two types of operations on RAM: read operation. In this operation, CPU reads data from RAM. Firstly, CPU will read data from random access memory, and the data read from RAM is copied in a CPU register. And which data CPU reads from RAM, after that the data is copied in a CPU register, and after copied in a CPU register, write operation. In this operation, CPU writes data into RAM, and the data from a CPU register is copied to the specified location of memory, and then the data is copied for the main purpose. And which data is copied in the CPU register, after it the specific location of it can be put in specific location of memory where you want to put your data. Characteristics of RAM. The main characteristics of RAM are as follows. RAM is a volatile memory. Volatile means it's temporary memory. Its contents are lost when the electricity supply is cut off. When we are doing any task on RAM, the data will be lost when the electricity supply is cut off, because that is not temporary memory. So data will lose when the electricity supply is cut off. And RAM is a read or write memory. CPU can write and read data to and from the RAM. RAM is a read or write memory. CPU firstly read data from the RAM and write data from the RAM, and then put in the specific location of the memory where you want to put your data. RAM is random access memory. It means that any part of RAM can be accessed directly or randomly. Which data is put in RAM that can be used directly or randomly. When you want to use your data, that is copied in a CPU register, and after the CPU register, it can be put in any specific location of memory where you want to put your data. Next, types of RAM. RAM is built by using two different technologies. These are as follows: DRAM and SRAM. We will see that what is DRAM and SRAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, and there are two types of RAM. DRAM and SRAM. DRAM stands for random access memory and SRAM stands for static random access memory. DRAM consumes a lot of power and DRAM is the most commonly used technology to build RAM chips, and data and instructions are also stored electrically into it. And DRAM is refreshed with electric charge again and again, and the CPU cannot write and read data to and from the DRAM while it is refreshed. That's why that is slow memory. And SRAM is static random access memory, that is faster than DRAM and it is faster and more reliable than DRAM. The SRAM chip does not have to be refreshed with electric charge, not need to refresh frequently, while DRAM is need to refresh with electric charge again and again. You- um, and SRAM used to build a very fast memory known as cache memory. That is cache memory. Cache is used between CPU and the main memory. It is very small in size, but it is used to increase the performance of a computer. Mostly data and instructions can be stored in cache memory, that is in SRAM, static random access memory. Okay students, today we have discussed that what is RAM. RAM stands for random access memory and it is primary storage device. It is used to store data and instructions temporarily, and CPU can perform two types of operations on RAM. It read data from the RAM and then copied in a CPU register, and after it is copied it put it into specific location of the memory. And few characteristics of RAM are it contents are lost when the electricity, when we are doing any type of task on it, when electricity supply is cut off, then our work is stopped and our points are lost. RAM is read or write memory. CPU can write and read data to and from the RAM. And there are two types of RAM, DRAM and SRAM, random access dynamic random access memory, and SRAM stands for static random access memory. And DRAM consumes a lot of power and it is necessary to refresh it with electric charge again and again. And when electric charge again and again, during refreshing process CPU cannot write and read data, and CPU wait for the DRAM for copy any type of data. That is why it is slow memory, while SRAM is faster than DRAM and not need to refresh frequently, and it utilize less power, that is used to build a very fast memory known as cache memory. Cache memory is also used to store any type of data in it. Okay students, I hope you have understood that lecture and you will learn it. By following these points you can learn it easily. Okay students, Allah Hafiz.